this session. Okay, dear student, what I was talking about, like say, letter to the editor is the kind of writing which is a public writing. Every letter that is published in a newspaper is supposed to be read by hundred thousands of people. A great number of people read it, and that is the reason we need to be quite apprehensive for something that we are writing. Something that is going to be public, something that is going to be published, and it is to be read by a great number of people. You all know very well. Once you are writing something on a piece of paper, like you're writing something in your own diary as a note, it is something personal, right? Whereas the type of writing I'm just talking about, a letter that is going to be published in a newspaper, it's not something personal. It is something which is public. Okay, it goes to the hands of hundred thousands of people, and even not there, not even there, the people who are living in your own city, but the people who are living in some other city, some other part of the country. Even some newspapers are internationally published, like some of the magazines, some of the newspapers which are internationally published, we read there in our own country, in our own city. Such as there are some magazines, some newspapers which are also internationally published. That is the reason we call them public writings. And for such public writings, we need to be very much apprehensive, and there isn't anything which is personal. We write it very objectively, so this point needs a little more explanation. What do I mean by such public writings are written more objectively? Means there is always some specific purpose that we would like to highlight. It's not without any purpose. And our main focus from the very start to the end is to highlight that issue whatsoever once we are writing a letter to the editor of a newspaper, right? Now, if you have been through those letters, if you ever have had or had have a glimpse of those pages of the newspaper where those letters are published, then you must have seen on the corner of that page, it is always advised to the readers and the writers that you need to restrict yourself within 200 and so words once you are writing a letter to the editor of newspaper. Why it is restricted? That is another question that we need to consider. It is restricted for so many reasons. The most important one is that there is less space to be provided for writers to just share their grievances, their problems and issues, because they want to give place to a number of letters. Secondly, the viewers, the readers have not such enough time to read through those lengthy letters which are containing hundred thousands of words. So these are the two main reasons for which every magazine, every newspaper restrict its writers just to restrict themselves in such word limit that is asked or advised by the publisher. Am I clear to all of you? Okay. I just have seen this, expression from only a few students, so I can better understand, like, see what is the response of the people. Anyways, my job is to explain to you people and share something with you. Now, second point is like, which is again very important, that once you are writing a letter to the editor, what should be the format? Language, obviously, a letter that is to be published in the newspaper, it is a formal way, formal writing, public writing. So the language must be fairly formal. I also ask you people just read through any two of the letters which are published in the letters to the editor pages in Dawn or the newspaper today, right? Once you read through, you will come to see the things that I'm explaining, the things that I'm discussing with you people, and the information that I'm sharing with you. You'll find that things are as it is as I'm explaining and discussing with you people. So the other point is obviously like something that is written to the newspaper, then you need to show your identity, your like see if you're writing something to the Dawn newspaper, then you also need to give your ID card, your email ID, your name, your proper credential. Like these three are very important. Although these things other than your name is not supposed to be published on the newspaper, but they would like to keep it with them, because if there is any other problem or something later on they have to face, they can contact the person, they can communicate him or her, right? And that is the reason that is to be published. Once we say that those letters are precise, we have to restrict ourselves within a specific word limit. So the main aspect of language, which is really very important for the writers, it is something like we should know about preciseness. We should know about preciseness. Like, there is an expression I would like to share with you people. Something that is quite unavoidable. Now, see how many words are there. Something is one, which is quite unavoidable. These are all, you know, containing six words. Now, if I use only one word for the same, then what could be the word that we can use for the same phrase, something which is unavoidable?
Inevitable.
Inevitable. Exactly. Very good. Now, see, the people who have such competence, the people who know like those words we can use rather than using a number of words, we can just use one word. The situation is inevitable. Now, see, the people can understand because inevitable is something that is not to be avoided. It is inevitable for me. Likewise, there are a number of other words that is just for your understanding because we need to be as precise as possible once we are writing such letters. We refer to the editor at the very start of the paper once we are writing, and the purpose is to be mentioned at the very start of the letter that this is the main purpose that we would like to, or I'm writing this letter to you, and that purpose, keep this in your mind. The the reason you are writing for, it must have some relevance to the masses and public. It is something, an issue not personal to you only, because then your letter is not supposed to be published because it's something one man is facing. If it is a problem of community, if it is a problem of society, if it is something which is important for the society as a whole, then your letter is to be published. So bear it in mind if you ever think of writing a letter to the editor. So you must be writing something on a particular subject which might have some relevance, some importance for the society as a whole. And for your understanding, for your information, there are endless issues that the society is facing wherever you are living. You can come across, you can see, if you look very closely, there are a lot of issues that can be highlighted. And only the literate people adopt these channels, they write to those newspapers, and sometimes those issues are to be resolved. At least we do our job, right? We try our level best, then see if it is not undertaken, if the government and those institutions which are supposed to resolve those issues, they don't take it seriously, they don't take the right measures and the right means or the actions, then at least we did our job. And see, uh, then we cannot restrict people, we cannot compel, at least we can highlight. So I did my job. and then see we can think of something if the issue is not resolved. So once we are done with this one, like see a letter to the editor. Let me have a sip of water, please. The other, as I just told to you people, it is a speech. And you know, people who deliver speeches, like even most of our people of bearing king's offices, high offices, they also have some writers. You know, the one who write them those speeches and they just deliver them before some audience, right? Now see how a speech is different than the other types of writing. Firstly, we need to know about like what a speech is all about. Is there any one of you, because it's something really very common, something that some of the students might have participated, written speeches, delivered speeches in your earlier classes. So I would like to listen to any of the participants, any of the students who would like to talk about like what type of interaction or communication a speech is all about. This is my question. The one who would like to respond to this question, please raise your hand. Yes, students, haven't you ever participated in any of the speech competitions? Haven't you ever listened to any of the speeches? Haven't you ever listened to any speaker who delivered a speech? What should I understand from the silence? आपको मेरी आवाज आ रही है बेटा? Would you please let me know through your thumbs expressions if you can hear me? बेटा आपको मेरी आवाज आ रही है? I'm asking you very simple, very simply. Can you all hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. अच्छी बात. एटलीस्ट बेटा मेरे कानों में किसी की आवाज तो आए कि भाई देयर इज समवन हु इज देयर विद मी, or at least show your expressions just to let me understand that there are people who are listening to me. So beta speech is like a kind of writing, because we are talking about a written speech, writing a speech, not a delivering a speech, because these are two different things. One is with respect to the written discourse, and the other is with respect to spoken skills. So these are two different things. How to deliver a speech is another thing, and how to write a speech is another thing. So our focus is writing a speech. Our main focus is writing a speech. Keep this in your mind. First of all, bear it in mind, the main purpose of writing a speech is an informative document. A speech is what kind of writing a speech is? It is informative. Keep this in your mind. A speech is not a debatable topic. Debate is something different. A speech is simply informative. The main purpose of writing a speech is to share some information with the audience, right? So obviously, the other thing is when we say the main purpose or the sole purpose of writing a speech is to inform the audience, then we need to be to the point. We need to be specific. We need to be clear, and we need to be understandable. And the language and all the things that we are using should have been written in the same manner. But see how it is different than the other writings. A speech is to be written in the manner a speech is delivered. Keep this in your mind. Make a note like once you are writing a speech, it should be written the manner it is delivered. Now, how can I write a speech in the manner it is delivered? So, like if I give you a situation that you are the one of the representatives of your university, and there is an event the campus or the university is celebrating, and you as the head boy or the head girl or the representative of your university or campus has been asked by the management to deliver a speech to the audience, and you have been told that he or they are your audience, like the people from outside, the people from the top management, the people from the faculty members, and the students, colleagues, and class fellows, and senior students and junior. Now it's a mix of audience where the dignitaries, the excellencies are there, and all the other people whom you are very informal as well. Bear it in mind that considering the situation, which is um, which is an event that you are hosting, depending on the event that you are hosting, you need to draft it accordingly. But one thing that generally you must have seen, the audience, the speaker at the very first starts with his or her speech while like naming, calling like the dignitaries, the excellencies, the president, the chairman, the whosoever is there, welcoming the participants, welcoming the visitors at the very start. Means if a speech is, if the event is being hosted early in the morning, then how should we start? We start in the name of Allah and we say good morning to all the dignitaries, the excellencies, or the head of the department, the vice chancellor, the faculty members. And once you are addressing to those people, you must start from top to bottom as far as their designations are concerned. If there is, one host who is to chair the event, who is the main or who is the chief guest, so right away we are starting in the name of that person, welcoming that person in the most humble, in the most welcoming words. Am I clear to you people? I want to see expressions. Okay. Muhammad Ahmad, Nashwa and Umme Zainab, these are the three people I can see on my screen on my mobile phone. And the rest of this one, I need to scroll this screen just to see. But these three are there with me on my screen. and Nashwa is the only one who shares the expression, whereas the two other they might have gone somewhere or they are enjoying their time with doing while doing something different. It's okay. I need to end up the session very soon, but let me just tell you that afterward we need to state the purpose, right? And see, it must have been written the manner we deliver a speech. Keep this in your mind. So we address the audience once again that see the main purpose to have this interaction with you people today is this, right? Apart from this, you also must have seen like in speeches we give more pauses. हम बहुत pauses भी देते हैं कहीं हम किसी चीज को emphasize कर रहे होते हैं तो बेटा यहाँ पर you know the role of punctuation marks is very important. So sometimes we give a big pause, then see what we need to do. Dot, 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 dot. One, twice, thrice, four times. And if we are so excited to say something, you know, the sign of exclamation, if you are putting a question, then say the question mark. And other than this, mostly in our speech, we also use contracted expressions, contractions. I would you know, you all know very well, contracted expressions are the short form of words. So we need to use contracted expressions because once we are communicating, once we are interacting with the people, we use those contractions. And these contractions are not allowed in other formal writings. But as far as a speech is concerned, which is either formal or informal one, in both cases, these contractions are allowed. Is that clear to all of you? Okay. Now see, how should I start once we are done with saying good morning, welcoming the people? There are other ways to start with, like some people start with sharing some like joke sometimes. Sometimes people start in a humorous way. Sometimes people start with some like sharing some wise sayings, some quotations. Okay, and sometimes some of the speakers start with putting a question to the audience. That is known as rhetoric. We call it rhetoric. Means rhetoric devices, one of them is just to put up a question to the audience, although this question is not supposed to be answered by the audience. It is an employed questions. The speaker asks the question, but that is not supposed to be answered by the audience because there are a number of people sitting there. So these are some of the ways, right? Another thing, as we studied earlier, that is also important as far as a speech is concerned. A speech must always be persuasive, informative, and persuasive. Who would like to reflect on persuasive? Means what do you mean by persuasion? Please raise your hand. Semul. Okay, just wait a minute, bit up here. Then let me see the other one. Okay, only yes, Zemul. Beta, you can unmute yourself.
So by persuasive, it means it should be convincing to the audience. It should lead them to a mindset that if you're delivering something, it should lead them to a mindset that you are correct, or they should be convinced by the information that you're giving.
Okay, I got this point, and I do agree. And how can a speaker convince his or her audience. You know what one should do while writing a speech?
So, in argumentation writing, you shared some three rules: ethos, pathos, and logos. By logic and by emotion, and by reasoning. So those are some things that we can use to emotionally connect, or by reasoning, we can connect with the audience and we can try to convince them.
Very good. Very good. I do agree with whatever she has said. Like, see, keeping all those tools of persuasion, which have been stated by one of the philosophers, and all the other things, they are in one way or the other relate to the same, like convincing or persuasion tools, right? And if we are well aware of them, and if we apply them, this is how we can at least try our level best to convince. Because the main purpose of writing and delivering a speech to share your information, something that you have gathered, you collected some information, your emotions are to be shared with the people. Must have seen a number of speakers who are emotionally charged. बड़े emotionally charged होते हैं जब वो speech deliver कर रहे होते हैं, ठीक है? And there is a purpose, there is a reason, because they are sentimental, they are impulsive, or they are trying to behave in such a manner, or they are trying to ignite the emotions, exploit the emotions of the audience. And that is the reason sometimes a speaker like behave differently, although in general way they behave differently, right? But see, one thing is quite convinced that a speech must be persuasive. And if you know all about those tools of persuasion, then we can try to make our speech convincing, right? A speech as started with welcoming and stating the purpose towards the middle. As I mentioned, we state all the details in such a manner which is somehow, in one way or the other, is so convincing for the audience. Then finally, how it is to be concluded, bearing in mind, considering that now the audience is on your side, whatever you have conveyed, they all believe it, and there should have been a call for the action, a call for the action. And we need to be thankful to the audience who have been there with you for 10 minutes, 5 minutes, more than that or less than that, right? And this is how that is to be ended, right? Again, a speech which is in the written form, we need to make ourselves like if we have been directed that you need to write your speech within 200 words, 300 words, 500 words, depending on the word limit, we need to write our speech. So that is all about today's session, and both of the types of writing, their purpose is the manner, the use of language, and all the other relevant aspects we just have completed. And I would like you to write a speech and at least read two or three letters to the editors which are published there in the newspaper for your better understanding. I think it will help you understand some of the things that we just have discussed and studied in our session. So I think like there won't be any questions, since once I was asking questions to the people, there is, apart from only Zemel, there is no one else who raised his or her hand or asked me a question, right? So I don't think there is any question, but even then, it's my sole responsibility just to ask you once again. If any one of you would like to ask me a question, so I will try my level best to respond to your question. No question? Okay, then see, I would like to end up this session because I'm really feeling too hungry. I haven't been able to have my breakfast, and since early in the morning I left and right away I took for around 2 hours before starting my session around 30 minutes earlier, and then see I've been there with you people having only two. So I also have to take something, and you are also allowed to have your lunch and all that you would like to do. Inshallah, see you soon in our next session. Until then, I must say Allah Hafiz. Take care of you, your family, the people in your surroundings, and be like health conscious. Take a lot of care as far as your health is concerned. So may Allah be with all of us. Allah Hafiz to all of us.